So good evening, everybody. Of course, thank you for joining us tonight virtually. My name is Tony Quintana. I'm the plant-based eating program manager with Animal Protection of New Mexico. And tonight with us, of course, we have Victor Flores from Vegan Outreach. Thanks for being with us, Victor. And so we're excited just to talk about kind of our experiences with, both of us have been vegan for a little while. We'll talk a little bit more about in our introduction and, just kind of share our experiences with veganizing our traditional foods that we grew up with and have enjoyed kind of our whole lives. And now we just enjoy vegan versions of those. So with tonight's webinar, like I said, we're going to share a little bit about us. We're going to give some, tips and tricks and things we've learned along the way for veganizing our favorite foods, our traditional foods. We're going to share some recipes. This is just some of the recipes we're going to share. I think we actually have a couple more than what's listed there. And of course, we're going to share resources where you can get more recipes, more information when you leave the webinar. So excited that everybody's joining us and to have this conversation. So I'm just going to start, sharing a little bit about me, about myself. I grew up in New Mexico my entire life. About half my life I spent growing up in Santa Fe, the other half here in Albuquerque. So I'm kind of New Mexico through and through. Personally, I still kind of, as far as culture and heritage goes, I still kind of struggle to find the right language, vocabulary, terminology to kind of speak about how I identify. But basically, I usually just identify as New Mexican. I feel like that kind of sums up my heritage. My background being sort of 50%, Spanish from Spain, 50% indigenous from New Mexico, Mexico area. And I feel like my upbringing in terms of culture, tradition, and food is pretty unique to New Mexico. So some of the foods I'm going to talk about are how I've enjoyed them here in New Mexico, and hopefully, you can relate. Maybe you find something new, or just new ideas. And so I'm excited to share some of that with you all. So sharing a couple of my tips, and I know, Victor and I have talked about this a lot, and so we kind of share this philosophy, is that, you don't have to search for brand new recipes. Like, you don't have to go looking like, oh, now I want to go vegan, so I need to find a vegan pozole recipe. I'm like, no, not at all. Use the same recipe for pozole that you've always used, just make a few substitutions and veganize it. So that way you keep the same flavor profile, everything that you grew up with, everything that you enjoy, and you just veganize it. So, and many times it's just a simple substitution. You might just need to swap out the broth for a vegan broth, change out the meat for something different, and then you're easy and you're ready to go. And so it's good too if you can familiarize yourself with different plant-based substitutes. I have just a couple here on the screen. I like to use canned jackfruit to take the place of pork. So I'll use that in pozole sometimes, or in tamales or different things like that when you have like that shredded pork. Seitan, I like to use that in some different things. Growing up, my mom always made a caldito with like little cubes of steak. And so I made that with the little cubed seitan, and it was so perfect for me. Of course, the Beyond Beef and all the different vegan meats can go really well in different dishes. And then don't forget the chicken strips. So, I've used those in pozole sometimes, and they're super good, super delicious. And there's a good question. Somebody asked, don't Morningstar products have whey? Some of them do, and some of them don't. So you just have to look. I don't know if you can see on this, it's kind of blurry and really faint on this screen, but there's a little vegan stamp on this Morningstar product. So they'll either be stamped that says vegan, or the stamp will say vegetarian. The stamps look pretty similar, so you have to just kind of pay close attention. Word was that Morningstar was going to go completely vegan. I'm still waiting for that to happen. I don't know if Victor's heard any updates on that. I kind of check every time.
Yeah, I hope by the end of this year. I think they're phasing out like almost all the stuff is vegan now, except maybe like they have some breakfast patties and their bacon that they make. but almost all of it's starting to go vegan now. But they should be. They said 2021, but we'll see. We'll see if that happens.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
So yeah, just find your subs and swaps and use the same recipes you've used the whole time. I keep the same family recipes that we've had, and you know, my family when we cook vegan, same thing. And then you'll see an example of that coming up. So another tip that I have is think about what dishes, what ingredients, what products are already vegan, right? So I say either naturally or accidentally. So some things are naturally vegan, like, you know, guacamole, tortillas, things like that. Like they just use plant-based ingredients. That's just the way it goes. And some products are accidentally vegan. Like sometimes they use animal-based products, sometimes they don't. For example, the discos to make empanadas, some of them are not vegan, some of them are accidentally vegan. So if you find the ones that are vegan, you can easily we've made some really good vegan empanadas just using those discos and then some Beyond Beef crumbles, and then again, all the same spices. And, you know, just kind of remember a lot of traditional foods, I'll speak for myself anyway, are really centered around plants. Most people think that the meat and or the cheese is the most important part. Kind of that's what our food's centered around. But to me, you know, I think if you close your eyes and think about all the dishes you grew up with and picture them without any of the meat and cheese, you still have what? Beans, tortillas, corn, squash, avocado, cilantro, et cetera, et cetera. Now picture those foods without any plant-based ingredients. You just have a chunk of unseasoned meat, right? So really what we're centering around is those plant-based products and plant-based foods, and that's what really gives us the flavors that we're used to, right? So those are kind of some of my two main tips with veganizing your favorite foods, your traditional foods. And now I'm just gonna share a couple recipes with you all. And I kind of starting off with something very simple, very basic, which is one of my traditional foods that happens to just be naturally vegan because it just uses the plant-based foods. And so quelites, that's something that I grew up with, New Mexican quelites. And I also like to share this too, because it's an absolute nutritional powerhouse, you know? So I love that. It's also one of my comfort foods because it almost doesn't get any healthier than fresh spinach and pinto beans. You know, leafy greens and beans are two of the best things on the planet for us. Add some garlic, that helps boost your immune system. You could make this without oil to make it even more healthy. And for me, you know, one of the key things is that Chilepikine. That's how my mom always used to make it. Of course, you could use any type of chili or peppers or anything you want. You could tweak it pretty much any way you want to do it. But again, it's really one of my comfort foods that I just realized is naturally vegan. It's kind of easy for me to be a vegan New Mexican with foods like this. All right. So another recipe that I want to share, and the reason I'm sharing this, you know, I forgot to mention in my introduction, in addition to my background, we have a good question going back to the quelites. Somebody asked, would you season the pinto beans if they're canned? Me personally, I wouldn't, just because I just like the flavor of the garlic and the chilepikine. That really does it for me. Some people like to season them. Totally your preference. Some people like to season their beans when they cook them, like in the crock pot, and I don't really do that a whole lot. Maybe just some garlic, some fresh garlic in there. And then the question, how is chilepikine different from other chilies? It's a good question, and really it's hard to put my finger on it. You know, it's sort of like trying to describe the difference between hatch green chili and poblano peppers. You know, there's so much similarity, but there's just something different about the flavor profile. Victor, I don't know if you have any thoughts on how chilepikine is different, but it's reminiscent of like the crushed red peppers, right?
Yeah, my mom used to make that all the time, but I never knew what the difference was. But I do know it could be a little spicier than sometimes than other ones, if I'm not correct. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah, I think it probably is.
yeah, there's so many chilies. I mean, for me, I would just maybe Google it and see what the difference is. But yeah, I'm not too familiar exactly what the difference is.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like if I use other chilies, that'll be good, but I'll know it's not the way my mom used to make it.
All right.
And then I usually get, here in New Mexico, you could get it. There's usually the stores have like a Hispanic food section or something like that. And then it's like in the Bueno foods or the different, Mexican brands, you could get a little package of crushed Chilepikine.
Yeah. Somebody was asking if it's is it red or green chili, fresh or dried. I'm assuming it's red, and it's usually dried, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in a powder.
It's red and it's dried and it's crushed. Yeah, for sure. All right. So like I was saying, in my introduction, I meant to also mention that my wife is from Miami. And so, she grew up with the Puerto Rican foods, Cuban and Dominican foods. And so she brought that over to New Mexico. So our household is just a really, diverse. We have a diverse palates in our house. And so we really enjoy those foods as well. So we enjoy Arroz Con Gandules. And so this is one of those examples of where when we went vegan, she just took the recipe that she always used and then just made a couple swaps and easily we're done. So, just swapped out the vegetable broth and omitted. Sometimes people will put um, pork fat or something like that for flavor. You just don't put that in, and it's super easy. And this is another really healthy food. So I'm glad somebody asked because I meant to say, somebody asked what are gandules. They're basically they're pigeon peas, I believe is what they're called.
Yeah.
And you usually just find them canned, and they say pigeon peas on the can. And that's really what they are. And what makes this unique is the flavor profile, again, the seasonings from the sofrito, which is something that you can buy or you can make at home. It's just lots of basically fresh ingredients, fresh vegetables. Essentially, that's what it is, kind of blended up. And you can buy it. You just have to read the labels and make sure if it just has plants and not other animal-based flavorings, basically. Somebody also asked, will your recipes be available as a document or on a website? So most of our recipes are on our website, but this webinar is also being recorded, so you can watch it on our YouTube channel afterward. And we can try and maybe send some of them out to folks after the webinar as well. So basically, yeah, we'll do our best to make the recipes available. So again, this is a really recipe that we enjoy. It's pictured here with a couple other foods with the maduro. That's basically the fried plátano, which is really good side to go with it. Another traditional food that Moek brought over from Miami. All right, and then one last recipe, something that I grew up with here in New Mexico, is atole. And it's, basically like almost has a similar texture to, like, people like to say, cream of wheat or something like that. You can use blue corn masa, which I prefer. You can also use yellow corn masa, which some of my other family members prefer. And again, you can tweak this any kind of way you want. This is kind of my go-to because we've got a family of 4 and all of us love this so much. And so I just make it for 4 people all the time. Of course, you can use a sweetener of your choice. Some people like to use the Mexican sugars or, some other type of sweetener. You can do that. Cinnamon, traditionally it's made with cinnamon sticks in it. I'm just not good at keeping cinnamon sticks in the house, to be honest. So I just like to use, ground cinnamon. When I make with blue corn, I don't like cinnamon in it. When I make it with yellow corn, I do like cinnamon in it. It's all just super preference. This is traditionally served hot. It's like a hot beverage, or a hot, basically food. I like to serve it in mugs, but some people will serve it in bowls as well. But it's traditionally served hot. It's super good in wintertime. Some people like to add a pat of butter to it to just kind of add that fat to it and just give it more of that depth, you know. And of course, you can do like a earth balance butter or something like that. I've heard some people refer to this as like it's you know, like soul food, but it's like and comfort food on another level. You know, it's like a hot, just comforting food. And somebody referred to it as it's like a warm hug from abuela, and that's kind of how I always think of it. And so I know you know, I make it for my kids and they love it, and so you know, it kind of like brings us together. How cooking for your family and preparing food is like an expression of love, you know. So I really like that. And I'm going to share the website address in just 1 second, probably on the next slide, actually. So yeah, so those were kind of the recipes that I'm going to share. Victor has some more recipes to share in just a minute. This is our website address. It's apnm.org/plant-based. And on here, we have even more recipes for you to check out. We have pozole, bizcochitos, tamales, fajitas, green chili stew, and lots of other recipes as well. We also did cooking demos, cooking demonstrations for some of these recipes in past webinars, and you can check those out on our YouTube channel. We also have a podcast called Teach Me How to Vegan that my wife and I co-host together. And we talk about lots of different topics related to going vegan, but in particular, we did this holiday cooking New Mexico style, where we share a lot of our traditional holiday recipes and foods. And we also did that on a past webinar as well. For anybody here in New Mexico, we have a vegan dining guide that you can check out on our website, and that's a statewide listing of restaurants with vegan options. You can always search on there, you know, terms like burritos, tacos, mole, stuff like that, see what pops up in the state. And then we have also got a blog with, you know, other tips and ideas for helping to go vegan. So one question, will the recipes be available after the webinar? So they will be. We'll make them available to people. We'll send a follow-up email and a link to the recording. And I'll also send a link to the YouTube channel in the follow-up email as well. So with that said, those are the recipes and resources that I was planning to share. So Victor is going to go ahead and share some more recipes, some more tips, and some more info.
All right. Awesome, Tony. Yeah, that's some good recipes you share there. It's interesting because like you're atole. I grew up in a Mexican household. I mean, my family's from Chihuahua, Mexico, and of course, I was born here in Texas, in the United States, but I lived in New Mexico for 9 years already. But the atole, I mean, we make it for Christmas, but we call it champurrado because we put a little bit of chocolate in there, and it's pretty much the same recipe. You know, maybe use sugar, but it's interesting how it's pretty much similar dishes in different areas, but
Mm-hmm.
they have a different name. So it's pretty interesting. And with quelites, I grew up eating quelites too. For us, instead of spinach, but we used to use, you know, I grew up very humbly. So we used to, there were weeds that were growing out. You know, I grew up on the farm and the ranch, and they were just there. So my mom would go pick them, and she'd prepare them pretty similar to that. And it's interesting how, again, they're very similar, but a little bit different at the same time. So I just wanted to share that. But let me go ahead and
Yep.
share my screen here. I'll go through a few recipes um, and share a little bit about my background. So let's see.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case. No, I was wondering, kind of wondering how you know, other people, you know, view my foods and recipes, and if you do something similar or not.
Yeah, no, it's not, because some people might say, no, that's not what you call it, but like, no, it's a different region. That's what they call it over here, and we call it different over here. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's not wrong either way. It's just, you know, different names. But like I said, I just want to share some a little bit of my background. Share a little bit of images here where I'm from. I was born close to Amarillo, Texas. I grew up on a ranch. My family, that's all we grew up in the farming community. I worked in the fields, in the cotton fields, actually, you know, getting weeds out of there, and a lot of exploitation out there on the farms. And that's just some of the background that I actually lived through. I remember the pesticide planes coming, spraying us while we were working out there. And I remember my mom just telling me to cover my mouth. It's some mean stuff that's still happening, man. And it's this was a while back for me, but it's still going on. So it's always good to be conscious, even also where our vegetables are coming from, just to be conscious of that. Of course, I identify as Mexican because that's where my family's from. I lived in Mexico for a while too. I lived in Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. Um, so I've been there, done that, lived it. You can see me. That's me. It's small right there, feeding a cow. Again, grew up on the ranch life, and the reason I share this because it doesn't have so much to do with veganism, but it's something that people can relate to. And if a person like me that comes from a ranch, comes from a Mexican family, can be vegan, I feel anybody can really do it. You could come across that and just kind of, hey, this guy's Mexican, he's vegan too. So it's a perfect combination, I guess. Again, growing up listening to Spanish music. So again, and same thing with Tony growing up in New Mexico, we're not different than anybody else. It's not that we had a privileged life or that we had this and that other people didn't have. I think far from it. I think we're just regular people. So that's why I'm sharing that. Um, this is my family. It's my partner Carla and my son, my three daughters. We're all vegan and we all work together. So just want to share that again. Being relatable. Tony also has a family. It's not like we're just two single guys and we can go vegan because it's easy for us.
Mm.
We both have families, and so again, just trying to be relatable, and that's why I share that. So we're going to go ahead and jump into tamales. Tamales are made all over the world, and they can come from different Latin American countries. So it's a variety. But what I'm sharing here is basically the Mexican tamal. Um, so what you want to do, and I got a little bit more elaborate here, and pardon me if it's a little tedious. But what you want to do if you've never made tamales before, the best advice I can give you is make sure you prepare to make plenty because it gets tedious. It could be a lot of work, and not because they're vegan tamales. It's just tamales in general. And so just make sure that you prepare yourself and make a good amount. And you could freeze these after you cook them or even before you cook them. So just keep that in mind. For the masa, I usually use 2 cups of maseca corn flour that's made for tamales. And some people might say, well, I see a bag that says for tamales and another one that just says maseca corn flour. The difference is, and for the tamales, it's a little bit a finer flour. So if you can get that, you can use the one for tamales. If you can't, it's no big deal. You can still make them just fine, but always try to look for the one for tamales because it's a little bit of finer flour. Um, I use a 1/2 cup of prepared red chili puree. Here in New Mexico, and I guess here in the Southwest, it's pretty much available. It's called Bueno Foods. They make, you know, you can always cook your own red chili and then blend your puree, which we usually do on our food business. But if you're in a hurry, you could just buy it frozen. It's already ready to go. You thaw it out, cook it with some spices, and you'd be good on the red chili part. I use 1 cup of vegan chicken broth. You might be asking, well, what the heck is vegan chicken broth? You can either make that with either the vegan chicken bouillon, or you can already bought it made. I actually have one here that we use here at the house. I don't know if you could see that. Let me see. Let's see. It says no chicken broth. You can find this depending where you live. We have Sprouts around here, and they're available there. Or sometimes like natural grocers or vitamin cottages, those have them. So you can look that if you want it already made. If you want to make your own little bouillon, you can always use. Let's see, there's the glare there. I have pictures of these on the slide, so you'll be able to see it. Trader Joe's makes a vegan chickenless seasoning salt. It's pretty much tastes like chicken bouillon, so you can mix that too. I also add to the masa teaspoon of baking powder, teaspoon of salt, and the biggest thing with tamales, they're usually traditionally made with lard, animal lard. And of course, since going vegan, we don't use that stuff. And plus, nobody should be using that stuff anyways, whether you're vegan or not. And so I use all vegetable shortening. I know some people use like coconut oil. But to each their own. When you do buy the vegetable shortening, make sure it's all vegetable shortening, because I've seen vegetable shortening mixed in with beef fat, and it says vegetable shortening on the very bottom. It says includes beef fat, so just keep an eye for that. What you want to do is mix the dry ingredients. I'll move this over here so I can read it. Let's see where my mouse is. Mix the dry ingredients, add the broth and red chili. Mix up till you get a spongy dough, and it's not too sticky. And then you want to whip the shortening before you throw it in there, and then you mix it with the masa and mix it all up really well. And one thing I point out here too, some people don't put red chili in their masa. They just make the corn masa, which is, it's pretty much the case everywhere I've seen, basically here in New Mexico. For me, growing up, we always had to have red chili in the actual masa, and it just gives you a lot of extra flavor on there. So if you can do that, definitely do that. But if you don't have red chili for the masa, of course you don't have to, but gives it a lot of extra flavor. So once you mix the shortening in there, you should have like a sticky dough that kind of sticks to your fingers. You don't want it too dry, so if you do get dry, add a little bit more red chili or some of the broth, or even water if you need to. And for the filling with tamales, just like empanadas, Tony shared earlier, it's like you can pretty much do whatever you want with them, with tamales. I did a little filling that with items that are pretty accessible everywhere. And again, you don't have to use a meat alternative if you don't want to. You could put whatever you want in there, and it should be good. I did the filling here for this example with a bag of Gardein crumble, which resembles kind of like ground beef, some diced potatoes. I put a quarter cup of red chili puree also in there with the filling, so you have more red chili. You can never have too much chili, in my opinion. And then I dice some onions, some onion powder, garlic powder, salt, cumin, paprika, a little bit of oil, and just fry all this up a little bit. You don't have to use oil if you don't want to. You can maybe put a little bit of water in there and just start warming everything up. You do want to make sure your potatoes cook through though. And I think that's it. I said cook for 5 minutes, but if you have raw potatoes, you might want to boil them beforehand and then toss them into the filling. That way they're already cooked through.
I've never oh, sorry, I thought you were done with the tamales. I don't want
No,
to.
no, go. Were you gonna
I
ask me
was just
something?
gonna say I've never put red chili in the masa before.
Oh yeah, dude, it's a game changer, man.
I'm gonna have to try that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then,
I don't know if anybody's on the call, but some of you guys know that we have a food truck. Our family has a food truck, so for us, I mean, when we make tamales, we actually make the chili from scratch, and we also put it in our masa. Also with the green chili, it gives it a lot of flavor. I remember growing up too, because that's how my mom and my aunts and my abuelitas used to make them. And I actually just used to pick the masa because sometimes, depending who would make it for me, would make it with with pork, and they'd leave like there'd be little pieces of fat in there. Sometimes it grossed me out. I mean, I wasn't vegan, but it just even then grossed me out, and I would just eat the masa, and it was pretty amazing at the time. So yeah, definitely a game changer.
that's
Um, yeah, and then once what you want to do is you got your filling and you got your masa, and then you're gonna drain your corn husks because you had those soaking for at least an hour, get all the water out. And if you look at this picture here on my right, you just spread a little thin layer of masa, you put your filling in there, wrap it up, fold it up, and with the husk over it, and you build all those tamales. And then once you're ready, you put water to boil in a steamer, and you put the tamales standing with the open end up in the pot, and make sure not too much water gets in the bottom, so that way they can just strictly steam. You cover them with a damp cloth, put a lid on the pot, and steam for at least an hour and a half. Depending how firm you want them. Sometimes I'll go 2 hours, depending what we want. But even when they start to cool down, they'll firm up, because sometimes if you pull them out an hour and a half, you might feel like, oh, they're still a little soft, they're not cooked through yet. Even if you take them out, you let them cool for a little bit, they'll start to firm up. So once you're done with all that, you got to try to eat as many as possible and enjoy them. So that's pretty much it right there with the tamales.
there was a quick question on them too. If you can substitute vegetable oil for shortening.
I do know some people that do it that way.
Oh
I think,
wow.
yeah, I think it's possible because even sometimes some people will melt the shortening and get it to the oil consistency. Um, I do know with the vegetable shortening, and when you whip it up, it makes them a little bit fluffier. So that might be the only difference. But bottom line, the vegetable shortening and oil, they're pretty similar. So yeah, it definitely is possible.
Okay. And then you could also use coconut oil. People want something that's a little bit closer to like a Whole Foods option. Just I always say make sure you get the fractionated coconut oil so that it doesn't add a coconutty taste to your tamales. Unless you're into that, then of course
Yeah,
go
yeah.
for that.
The refined coconut oils. It doesn't have any flavors, any coconut flavor.
Yeah, get the refined, yeah, the refined
Yeah,
coconut oil.
yeah, and but yeah, you could definitely do that. I know people have asked before, like, "Hey, can we do oil free?" Um, you probably technically could, but you kind of deviating from the original dish a little bit too much there, and it might not, be the same. Again, you can still get the flavor of the corn masa with, we put chili in it and stuff like that. Should be okay. I mean, if you want to try that, but again, these are tamales, traditional way. They're pretty greasy and they're not a super health food, but if you want to make them on the healthier side, and like Tony said, maybe use coconut oil if you need to. But a couple different options you could look into. I share this picture here because it's just a stock image from the internet there, and I share it because food is very intimate, and I feel that you do have to relate to your foods if you're trying to make your family go vegan or you're considering going vegan, but maybe your partner doesn't want to. You got to share the foods that you're already familiar with and bring in those traditional dishes if you're used to them. I always tell people just pick 5 of your favorite dishes that you already made before going vegan and veganize those. And like Tony said, there's plenty of alternatives you could use. um, and sometimes you just really don't need alternatives. You could just, like Tony also mentioned, a lot of the dishes were primarily plant-based. If you take the meat out and you have a lot of sustenance still of food, I mean, you can still enjoy all that too. So it's not necessary that you have to eat all these alternatives, but it does help you and it does help your family members or friends to kind of relate to the food and enjoy it as well.
And add a little tidbit too.
Hmm.
Language is everything too, because we like to make tamales with calabacitas in them, which is basically just like squash, corn, green chili, and sometimes cheese. And so one year, for Christmas, my mom made a bunch of calabacitas tamales, but she just labeled them vegan tamales. And then nobody touched them, like everyone thought they were some foreign food or something, and which was cool more for me, but I wanted people to try them too. So then the next year we labeled, it was the exact same thing, and she labeled them calabacitas tamales, and then everyone devoured them and ate them up. And it's like it's the same thing, but we like vegetables, we like plant-based foods. Sometimes like the languaging is just a little bit tricky.
Yeah, there's a stigma with the word vegan. They feel it's going to be bland and boring.
Yeah.
Let me go back here because I think I forgot to mention it because I know you mentioned the calabacitas, you make them with cheese. I just shared, like, I use the crumble for this example, but if you want more traditional, you want like shredded pork. You can use jackfruit, um, and if you want to make like beans and cheese, somebody asked if we had a good cheese for enchiladas. Day is one of the more old school cheeses that, and I have to admit, back in the day, it wasn't my favorite, and a lot of people maybe have that stigma also with Daya that, hey, it wasn't the best, and there's so many other good cheeses out there as well. But Daya came out with a new formula. It's called the Cutting Board Collection, and that cheese is probably our new favorite. And we actually made enchiladas, I think, last week. And they usually with the enchiladas, I'll use the mozzarella because we'll make like red chili. Because usually Mexican enchiladas are made with like white cheese. That's why we use that. I did find this Mexican four cheese blend that's pretty good. We've been making quesadillas with that too. But you could throw that in the tamales if you want it with like some people make them with like rajas, which is rajas just like sliced jalapenos, or you can use green chili or whatever pepper you want to use that's kind of cooked already. You mix it with the cheese; those come out really good. You throw some beans in there. Again, like Tony says, calabacitas are a popular item to throw in there. So anything that you like, you probably throw in there.
And we
So
like to we like to make our cheese from scratch. We make like a cheese sauce for enchiladas. That recipe is actually on our website too, and we demonstrated at some point. But yeah, it's kind of like a nacho cheese sauce in a way. But personally, we like to use that because then we just kind of layer it and bake it, and we don't have to fry the corn tortillas before. A lot of here in the way we grew up is you would fry the corn tortillas and then layer it with cheese, and so it's like super oily, which is good in a way, and also we can remove some of that oil, and we like the texture and flavor of it too. So that's another option that you could do as well.
yeah, I saw Robert here was asking, could you go oil free by using avocados in place for the shortening? It's an interesting proposition there. I think it might work, but again, don't hold me to it because I've never done that. But it sounds delicious anyway, so it might be worth a try. I know some people use like avocado oil if you want to do that, but it's already a little bit more refined than the actual avocado. But yeah, definitely might be a good thing to try out. Um, seitan, definitely seitan. If you you know, buy it already pre-made, or if you make your own, seitan is versatile. You could use it with so many things, you know, including tacos and burritos and other things. But yeah, definitely a good idea for the filling there. Somebody saying they did a vegan tamal class with canola oil. Yeah, that should work also. Yeah,
Hmm.
sounds good. Yeah, I do want to stress out because I saw that comment. I'm not sure what the logic behind it is, but I'm sure it's cultural and regional. But when we say tamales plural, I mean we say tamales, Tamales, and in Mexico when we say it singular, there's no e at the end. So just wanted to point that out. Not that
It's
we're in
a,
Mexico, but
it's a New
it's
Mexico thing, I think,
yeah,
because growing up, everyone in New Mexico said the singular as tamale, but I recently learned that's not actually correct.
yeah. Same thing. Same thing goes for pozole. In Mexico, we spell with the Z, and I know here in New Mexico we spell with an S.
Yeah,
So it's again pretty much same thing, but it just depends on the region.
the
That's what
Spanish is different everywhere. Language is different. Yeah.
true. Yeah. So I'll get to the mole. A lot of people aren't too familiar with mole. I grew up eating it, you know, almost all my life. I still to this day eat it, and I enjoy it very much. Mole is pretty much, again, there's different types of moles, but for me, growing up in northern Mexico and you know, the southern United States, and being exposed to mainly northern Mexican people, is was mole. So it's a Mexican mole that we use. And again, there's other types of Mexican moles, but the one I use is more based up northern Mexico. And it's basically just like a peanut chocolatey, you know, savory sauce, has a little bit of sweetness to it,
Mm.
and it's very versatile because you can use it with so many things. Basically, you can make it from scratch, which we also do for our food business. But you're kind of in a pinch and you're in a hurry, there's nothing wrong with buying the jarred mole paste, which I have a picture of here. Doña Maria. There's a couple of different brands. I think for the most part, the ones all I've seen are vegan, and we've actually contacted Doña Maria and verified that it is actually 100% vegan. And they make a couple other products too that are all vegan. So it kind of helps you out in the kitchen if you need like a quick. It's kind of like a base, and then you kind of spice it up and you use it however you feel like. I like my everything spicy, all my food spicy. So in the mole, I'll usually add 2 to 3 chiles de árbol, which are the little red dry peppers, the little long ones, and you can buy them in a bag. And I'll share. I think I have a picture of that. The chicken bouillon powder. Again, I like this Trader Joe's. If you can have a chance, if you have access to Trader Joe's that's close by, you might not, but if you do, it's $1.99 for a little jar. You know, you get a tablespoon of that and throw it into this. It just gives that extra flavor. Growing up, my mom used to make this with chicken, and of course she cooked the mole sauce in the chicken stock, so that would give it a lot of flavor. And with this chicken bouillon, we don't miss any of that. Still have that flavor that we liked. You want to throw in a half slab of chocolate Ibarra or chocolate abuelita. Um, chocolate abuelita is probably more known, more available in different places. So it's a chocolate. It's not like baking chocolate, so it's kind of hard to substitute for that. But you can pretty much find it anywhere. But it's usually a little bit more gritty, has a little bit of cinnamon in it, and it's really good. I mean, my kids actually just like it by itself. But with that, that's a chocolate I was saying I throw in our champurrado, which is similar to your atole, and kind of makes it into like a Mexican hot chocolate. So if you never heard of champurrado, look it up. It's pretty easy to make too. Very similar to the recipe that Tony has for atole. And then I add some salt to the mole sauce. I add all this together, and usually you have chunks of the little mole paste and chunks of the little chocolate. So you want to stir that until it gets all mixed up and it dissolves into kind of a thick liquid. Then you lower the heat and simmer for a little bit. uh, Consomme here that I have on here. It's if you grew up Mexican, you probably know what Nor Suiza is, and consomme. Again, it's more like a chicken bouillon powder. This is just another option besides the Trader Joe's. If you don't have a Trader Joe's near you, this other one's available at probably at Walmart. You know, you can find it different places. So it's just another option. There is hope because if you go to maybe in the main section where they have all the bouillon, you just see chicken and beef and pork and you kind of lose hope, like, well, there's no bouillon for us vegans. But no, there's definitely options. You just gotta look around a little bit. So keep that in mind. For the mole, again, it's basically a sauce, and you use it however you feel you want to put it on. Again, for me, growing up, it was traditionally made with chicken, so I listed a lot of chicken alternatives here. I know Tony shared the chicken strips from Morningstar, and as mentioned before, a lot of their products are practically all vegan. There's only a few, so just keep an eye out. Like I said, I think as far as I know, it's a sausage links, sausage patties, and the bacon that still have either egg whites or milk ingredients. And Morningstar is owned by Kellogg, so they've been around for a while, but they've stepped up their game and noticed that they should go vegan because everybody can eat vegan. But if you make vegetarian products, not the vegans can't choose not to eat that either. So it just made sense to try to go all vegan. So that's happening there. Gardein also makes these chicken strips. These are good. Don't get discouraged because when you thaw them out, they might be a little squishy, but once they start cooking, they firm up. You can either chop that up or try to shred it a little bit. Soy curls. I think I had an image of this earlier too for the tamales if you want to use that as a filling. Soy curls aren't pretty much available locally unless you have like maybe a health food store might carry them, but you can easily get them on Amazon. It's pretty much dehydrated, soy. Um, if you want it, they're gluten free. If you want to do that. Um, Also, the Gardein crumble if is gluten free if you're trying to avoid gluten. I know somebody mentioned trying to find something that's not soy. Jackfruit is always a good option if you want to make that for the mole. You could do that as well. And I did find Sweet Earth came out with a new chicken that's actually really good. We've made a chicken salad with it too. I haven't made mole with it, but I'm sure it would go good with it. And it's really good to try that. I don't know if you tried that out, Tony. Have you heard of that Sweet
Uh,
Earth chicken? Yeah.
Actually, yeah, we have tried that, the Sweet Earth one. Yeah,
Yeah.
usually we'll make like
Pretty deep.
chicken salads with it or chicken wraps or something. That's how we've tried it.
Yeah, cool, cool.
I'm sure
And
that
the
was
other thing, like as I mentioned, you don't really have to have meat alternatives because some people are like, well, didn't you choose not to eat meat and you want to eat all these meat alternatives? I mean, the reason for that is because we grew up eating meat and we can eat meat alternatives if we want to. And so there's nothing wrong with it. But if you're just like, I don't really like, I left meat because I didn't like the texture, I didn't like, the feeling it gave me when I ate it. You can always use, different veggies. And again, with mole, you can combine it with nopales. If you don't know what nopales are, it's usually like cactus chopped up. You can also find it pickled. Just get rid of all the vinegar it comes in, rinse it, and put mole on it. Mix it with corn and black beans. Good stuff. Same thing with enmoladas. It's kind of like an enchilada, but you use instead of chili, you use the mole sauce, and you could put some of that Daya cheese on there if you want, or no cheese at all. I think for a while you start thinking that you need cheese on everything. When you're not vegan, it's like, oh, we need to throw some cheese on here. This will make this. But even with the vegan cheese, I mean, also be careful with vegan cheese because you don't need that much. You don't need a big old chunk of cheese. It's like sprinkling on there will give you that satisfaction that you like from cheese. So just be cautious of that. And if you don't need cheese, you don't need it. And this picture here in the middle is one of the burritos we saw on our food truck, and so that's usually made with like Mexican rice and just lettuce. So very simple burrito, but very good. And like I said, you can make this as jackfruit to give you that texture that you like out of pork. So, and again, you can use any alternative you like. And it could be veggies, doesn't have to be meat or cheese alternatives. Now, menudo, and I see some questions about the mole. I'll come back to that here in a bit, but just want to get through the menudo here before we run out of time. Menudo is a little bit different than pozole. They use different chilies. Usually use guajillo, pasilla, and chile de árbol. For the broth, I usually get 4 cups of water, 5 dried red chilies. I usually, seed those out, and that's the guajillo. It's pretty much what a red chili is. I mean, they have different names, and depending on the chili, but the chile de árbol are those long little red ones like I have there in the picture, and the chile pasilla or ancho. Ancho it's just a poblano pepper, just dehydrated, dried out, and once they're ripe, they turn red, and so you can get those, and that gives it another little flavor on there. Use a quarter of an onion, tablespoon of salt. Again, don't be afraid with the spices. I learned that when going vegan, it's like you want this flavor to really pop. Just always test before and go light, and then you can start adding little by little. But don't be afraid to use spices. And use a quarter teaspoon of black pepper, a teaspoon of thyme, half a teaspoon of lime zest, and tablespoon of oil, and a 32-ounce vegetable broth. Vegetable broth, if you don't have any, you could definitely go with water. Just, use a little bit more salt. You want to boil all the chilies and with the onion until they get soft. Then you throw in there the chilies into a blender with the cloves of garlic, all the spices, and the same water that you use to boil the chilies. I save that water and pour it into my blender. If you don't want it too watery, you might want to do half a cup to start and see how thick the sauce is. But you can, play it, eyeball it there and see what works for you. And then I do the oil in another pot, and I fry the chili. That just gives it another depth of flavor. And so that's always good to do. You add the puree chili, fry for a minute or two. You don't want to fry too long because it'll start to burn. And then you add the vegetable broth and the zest, and that gives us our soup base, I guess. And to the broth for menudo, if you're not familiar with menudo, it's made with tripe, which is stomach lining of an animal, and for the most part, it's usually made with a cow stomach lining or pig stomach lining. And you might be asking, like, why the heck do we eat that? And believe me, when I was growing up, I did not like those little chunks of stomach lining in my menudo. I used to just pick out the hominy, and I think a lot of people do that. But again, growing up, I started to eat it. I actually started enjoying that stomach lining for some reason, and it's just disgusting stuff because you have to clean it and it stinks, but we still eat it for some reason. So I feel there's a disconnect there. We try to avoid, the bad thing about what we're doing with, first of all, an animal's been killed, and then you took out their stomach, and then you got to clean it so you can eat it, and you're cleaning the feces of the stomach. So menudo, some people might be turned away from it, but it's very traditional. I grew up eating it all the time. And instead of stomach lining, I use oyster mushrooms. And you can buy them fresh or you can buy them dehydrated at an Asian market. And they give you that little, it's kind of like a little squirmy little texture. Some people might not like it, but again, mushrooms are good for you. Oyster mushrooms are great for that. And they give us that texture. So if you want to replace, stomach lining, use oyster mushrooms. You'll be happy with that. I get a can of white hominy. Um, you can use white hominy. I have in the picture here Mexican style. Mexican style just means a little bit firmer. It's a little bit more, how do I say it? It's a little bit more popped, I guess, but it's really good. And then I throw in a half teaspoon of oregano. That's when it's cooking. You can always use oregano later on when you serve yourself in the bowl. This is actually my picture at my house. That's how we roll. If you see that picture, but you can have garnishes with diced white onions, the oregano, crushed red pepper to make it a little spicier, sliced radishes, cabbage. Definitely have lime. Put lime in there, and toasted bolillos. If you're not familiar with the bolillos, it's just a little piece of bread. They're usually sliced on top. You could pretty much find them anywhere. And I usually slice those in half. And the reason I put a picture of the vegan butter here, because I usually like putting butter on the bottom there and toasting it, really make it really nice. If you want to go traditional, I mean, that's the way to go. Definitely toast your bread with butter. You don't have to. You could definitely toast the bread. It still comes out pretty good. Again, the way I did this, you open the can of hominy, drain all the water out because you don't need that. You add the hominy to the red chili broth, and depending how far the level goes up on the pot, you might want to add a little bit more vegetable broth or more water. You add the mushrooms, add the oregano, simmer for 20 minutes, and you serve hot with bread and garnish. So that's menudo for you. And again, some people say you can't make menudo if you're vegan. I object to that. So you definitely can. And again, can't really read this quote because the screen is, my mouse kind of disappeared here. Let's see if I can move this. Okay, there we go. Cesar Chavez, a lot of people might not know that he was vegetarian and was vegan towards the end of his life. We know we cannot be kind to animals until we stop exploiting them, exploiting animals in the name of science, exploiting animals in the name of sport, exploiting animals in the name of fashion, and yes, exploiting animals in the name of food. Let's see. And then he also said, only when we have become nonviolent towards all life will we have learned to live well ourselves. So it's just a couple of quotes. Again, he was fighting oppression, and he also didn't want oppression on his plate. So that's why he went vegan towards the end. Again, some resources. I know Tony shared some good local resources as well. There's a picture on here. If you're Mexican and you grew up Mexican, you probably know who this is. It's an old TV show called El Chavo del Ocho. I grew up watching this, but the point of the picture is that you're not alone when you're trying to go vegan. There's so many resources out there. With Vegan Outreach, we promote very firmly our 10 Weeks to Vegan program, which is basically just a program that you get one email a week and you get recipes, nutritional information, and info on new products that are hitting the market. And it's totally free to sign up. So you get one email per week for 10 weeks, and then it's all done. The link I have here on here is for the 10 Weeks to Vegan in Espanol, which is a program in Spanish, because we have a great program called Semanario Vegano, which started in Mexico. And it's great, super good, but it's based in Mexico. So it really showcases the products that are available in Mexico. So me and Carla came up with a program to have here in the US for Spanish speakers. And that's what 10 Weeks to Vegan in Espanol consists of. So definitely you can copy this link here and join that. If not, everybody that's signed up for this webinar will automatically be signed up. And we also have a Facebook group that's called 10 Weeks to Vegan in Espanol. You can also join. We're also always posting things in there regarding recipes, nutrition, new items that are at restaurants that are available. So definitely join that group if you get a chance. On YouTube, again, if you speak Spanish, Cocina Vegan Fácil was our go-to. A lot of traditional recipes are shared on there. La Raza Vegana is another Facebook group that we started. We haven't been too active on there, but we also share recipes, sometimes funny memes on there that are relatable to the Mexican culture. Foodispower.org is also a good website. Veganmexicanfood.com, which is also run by them, is also another good website. OneGreenPlanet.org has over 5,000 recipes. They're not exclusively Mexican, but there's so many on there that you can definitely enjoy. Probably type in anything and find what you want. I remember there was a gluten-free carne asada on there that, soy-free. It was made with chickpeas, so it's worth looking that one up. Of course, Tony, a partner here, APNM.org, plant-based, /plant-based. They have their program, does a lot of good work here in New Mexico, and their vegan dining guides really well. If you're traveling through New Mexico, definitely look that up, and you can find different places to eat. Veganoutreach.org /Espanol is pretty much centered around our Mexican team in Mexico. But again, a lot of good information in Spanish. If you need that, share that with family and relatives. Good resource there. And of course, if you're traveling, happycow.net, you can get the app or look at their website and punch in the zip code and find out where to eat. So definitely good to check that out. And I think I'm done. Let me see. Let's stop sharing my screen here.
Somebody asked Victor, what's the name of your food truck and how would we find you?
Oh, hold on a second. Let me get back to, I lost the screen here.
Okay.
All right, there we go. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm here. I almost fainted, but because I'm vegan, I just kidding.
Take your B12, man.
Yeah, so my family runs the Route 66 food truck. It's ROOT food truck, Route 66 food truck. We're based in New Mexico, based pretty much in Albuquerque, and part of our proceeds actually go to benefit Tony and his organization, Animal Protection New Mexico. So if you are in Albuquerque, look us up on social media. Definitely find out about us. Their families technically just, we had some repairs on the truck right now, so they're kind of figuring out the dates that they're going to do to set up next. So keep an eye out for that.
And then I just wanted to shout out to someone mentioned that there's a good chicken broth, vegan chicken broth by Better Than Bouillon. We were just talking about Better Than Bouillon before we went
I have a
live.
chicken one too, but I had the veggie one here. But yeah, that chicken one's also really good.
Yeah, usually you have to order it online. I haven't found it locally anywhere. I look at Costco every time. I hope one day, one of these places will get it together. Yeah. But it's really good, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I know I said I was going to go back to some of the questions. I don't know if we had questions about tamales, or you already kind of went through all that.
Yeah, I've been going through them and we've answered mostly all of them. There was one about somebody likes cooking with chile, but I don't have a tolerance to high heat and can't tell from one specimen to another how hot one might be. Do you have any advice?
If you're not a high heat tolerance type of person, you can always start with bell peppers. Those are extremely mild. The poblano for me is not too spicy, but it might be spicy for some. Definitely the spicier ones are like the serrano peppers, or of course the jalapeno. But yeah, if you want to start with bell peppers, I mean, me growing up as Mexican, we hardly used bell peppers, but I do use them now, and those are, we're cooking for the kids. They don't like heat too much. We can use that.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. For me, the poblano peppers are pretty mild, and for everyone in our household, we make chile rellenos with the poblano peppers to be safe. But you could also
Yeah,
do like mild hatch green chili.
yeah, definitely.
And on the jalapenos, sometimes the fresh jalapenos, I just feel like I just smell them and I just know if they're hot. I don't know. I could just be like,
Yeah,
that one's hot, put that in my pile. That one could go for the kids. I don't know. That's it. If I'm just making that
you're
up.
a jalapeno whisperer. Yeah, no, but yeah, definitely. If also like pickled jalapenos, those aren't too bad,
Mhm.
compared to the fresh ones. They're definitely spicier, but that might be something to look into. Um, Somebody was saying, could you not make mole with regular dark chocolate and cinnamon? It's possible. The thing you got to watch out with dark chocolate is the bitterness. So the way to balance that in there, if you don't have chocolate abuelita or ibarra, you can add a little bit of sugar in there, and that should balance out the bitterness of it. I wouldn't go too heavy on the cinnamon though, but yeah, it's definitely possible. Um, yeah, somebody already answered. Soy curls are generally available by mail. Yeah, it's true. Um, as an activist, how can I get some flyers to give out during outreach? Thank you, Patricia. You can definitely go to veganoutreach.org, and then there's on the top right corner there's a button that says shop, and you could definitely order booklets through there, and we'll ship them out to you pretty quick, usually within a week. So you could see everything that's available too. And I know Tony has some resources online regarding booklets, or the dining guide at least, a couple other things. Correct me if I'm
Yeah,
wrong,
we have
Tony.
some fact sheets on the website too.
Yeah, you can also go there and print out your own, if you don't want to order anything like that. But definitely veganoutreach.org if you want to order any booklets. They also have T-shirts, a couple other merchandise. Um, do you happen to have a recipe for humitas? I have no idea what that is. Do you know what that is, Tony?
I don't. I was hoping that you would.
I'm not sure
We're
if you want to
stumped.
let us know. Yeah, if you want to let us know what that's based off of, or how it's made, or maybe we could come up with some alternatives for you. Definitely like to help out.
Yeah, sorry
Um,
about that.
yeah. Don says hatch chilies are not easily available in Seattle unless in a can diced into little pieces.
Mm.
Yeah, that's it's definitely not the same, but if that's what you got to work with, I'll definitely go for it.
Yeah, yeah, or have somebody overnight use some from here.
Right. Yeah, and again, Hetch chili. I mean, they're really great. But again, if just look for green chilies. I mean, I think I've traveled a bit, and I've always been able to find the long green chilies. When I looked around, they might not be Hatch, but they have some other versions of them if you want them fresh.
Yeah.
Oh, it's similar concept to tamales. It's Ecuadorian. Used to love these. Hmm. Well, I mean, I'm not sure how you make them, if they're wrapped in corn husk or banana leaves. Um, what the heck? Okay. Looks like Patricia and is it Fail? You guys can probably connect because it looks like she has a recipe for it. Um, Steamed and husk, time consuming. I'll make mine in a lasagna pan. Okay. Yeah, yeah, and definitely, like Tony said at the beginning, we both agree that definitely when you're looking up recipes and you're trying to go vegan, you can always look up. Doesn't have to look up. You don't have to look up vegan lasagna or vegan tacos. You could look up, carne asada tacos, and of course they'll come with meat in the recipe, but you just replace that with, alternatives. And so again, the spices have always been vegan. Growing up, that hasn't changed. So all the flavoring that in your food is from plants. It's not necessarily from animal products. So definitely keep that in mind. Um,
Absolutely.
Hi, Ilaria. Glad you're on. Ilaria saying the humitas are like tamales de elote. I guess just tamales with corn in them. So that sounds pretty good too. And usually the tamales, I'll get tamales. I kid you not. They'll already be spicy with the red chili in the masa and the filling, and then I'll still drench them with red chili on top. So, I know here in New Mexico we like to drench everything. Especially our burritos and stuff like that with red or green. But yeah, I
Mhm.
definitely actually in our food truck we've done it where we have them, drenched in red chili with vegan cheese on top. So definitely something to consider. And everything you can imagine is available vegan. Any alternative you can imagine, and don't give up if you buy a vegan cheese and you're like, oh, this one's horrible. There's so many more you could try out. And same thing with any other product. If you buy a meat alternative that you didn't really enjoy, give it a shot with something else. And if you don't like Beyond Meat, try Impossible. And if you don't like all that, there's so many different ground beef alternatives out there too. That's probably one of the easier ones to find. Also, chorizo is available in a vegan version. At Mexican markets, you can find the soy version, or if not, Morningstar also has a good one. A bunch of other different brands that are available.
Mhm. We've been buying the soy riso for like 10 years now, or more than
Yeah,
that. That's been
yeah,
always been there for us. And then somebody, when we were talking about the, if you're sensitive to heat or to spice, of course you can, I don't know, I didn't think to say this, remove the seed and rinse the oil. When you remove the seeds, you could remove a lot of heat, a lot of
it's true.
what
Yeah,
makes it hot. So I forgot about that.
yeah,
There.
yeah. You remove a
Thanks for
little.
pointing that out.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, you remove. That's why on the Menudo I see the red chilies just not to make it so spicy from the get go.
Mhm,
But yeah, removing the vein. Same thing for jalapenos. If you slice the sides of it, the fresh ones, and just avoid the seeds and the vein in there, that
mhm,
should be as bad. Yeah. So
mhm.
Patricia kind of shared for everybody there um, the recipe for humitas. Humitas. Nice.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So if you're able to just copy and paste that somewhere real quick. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and again, like Tony said, this will be on the YouTube channel for APNM there. I did want to go into the chat because it seems there's a lot of questions in the chat real quick before we wrap it up.
Yeah. Are poblanos less spicy than jalapenos? It really just depends. Like it's the jalapenos, I feel like the fresh jalapenos are the biggest gamble for me, I think.
Right.
Sometimes it tastes like a bell pepper and sometimes it's like
Yeah.
the hottest thing in the world.
Sometimes they'll be just not spicy at all. You'll be eating like 3 or 4 of them, and sometimes you
Mm.
can only eat half of one.
Yeah, in the same batch too, huh? You could just have a whole like
Yeah, it's
we
true.
like sometimes we'll do like stuffed jalapenos,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
and you're just eating them and then one just hits you.
Yeah, I remember I made jalapeno poppers. I remember the first year we were vegan, it was a Super Bowl, and we wanted to make like jalapeno poppers. And I got a recipe from that onegreenplanet.org, and they had them with like you buy the vegan cream cheese, you stuff those, and you put like bacon bits. If you're not familiar, bacon bits, I'm sure everybody knows about bacon bits. Most of those are vegan if they're just made with soy. I mean, not the ones that say real bacon, but if it's just bacon bits, those are usually vegan. Let's see. Somebody recommended that's a good idea too. If you go to the spice section, you see something that's called like poultry seasoning. That might also work, for some chicken stock if you want to use that. Or if you make seitan, the vital wheat gluten, and you want to give it like a chickeny flavor, the poultry seasoning is really good for that. But, see, somebody's gonna make tamales. Missed tamales since going vegan 4 years ago. What happened? I had tamales the second day I was vegan. I'm just messing with you. No, yeah, definitely. What happens with a lot of people is like I forgot. I think my family was doing a food truck event. Somebody came up and said they hadn't had a barbecue sandwich since they went vegan, and they're just super happy with that. And again, our family with the food truck is mainly activism. It's really to get out there and kind of showcase traditional foods or comfort foods that people are familiar with and kind of blow them away with like, oh, I can't believe this is vegan. But this person was just like, I hadn't had, I went vegan 5 years ago and I missed so much my barbecue sandwich with pickles and onions. And he was like, thank you for giving that back to me. But yeah, it's like it's not the people's fault because you assume, well, I let that go and that's already behind me, so I won't be eating that anymore. But for me and my family, we eat everything we used to, if not maybe even more, maybe a little too much now. But everything's out there for you. Anything you have, where traditional dishes or regular comfort foods, you can definitely make them vegan. Um, Somebody said
Yeah,
they might
with
have.
the tamales, my favorite in those is the jackfruit because I
Yeah,
grew up with just all the shredded pork with red chili. That's what we had like every Christmas all the time. So the
definitely,
first time
definitely.
I tried that, it was like
You're set.
changer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with the jackfruit, don't be discouraged if it comes out a little weird for you at the beginning because maybe you didn't prepare it a certain way. keep giving it a shot. And I recommend. I said jackfruit. I mean, Tony recommends a can, which is also really good. If you have access to, I think Sprouts sometimes carries the jackfruit company. Their little packs were already shredded, but I wouldn't recommend the pre-spiced ones because I just felt they weren't too good. So try to find the one that says naked on it, which is kind of like the one in the can that it's flavorless, and then you just spice it up how you want to. I know some people like to rinse it and get a little bit of that sweetness out. Some people like to boil it and then use it. Just keep giving it a shot because jackfruit. I mean, besides it being extremely not extremely good for you, but it's just a natural food. Um, you can definitely do a lot of things with it. And like Tony says, he also throws it in the pozole. You can also do that too. And with the
Mm.
caldo, the seitan, yeah, definitely gives you those little chunks of beef that you like. So definitely give that a shot. Nacatamales, uva. How you doing, uva? Those are from Nicaragua, or no? I'm not sure if they are, but banana leaves around here, but they're amazing. Yeah, I had a Puerto Rican friend. He used to make pastelitos, which were also tamales. I don't know if Mickey knows about pastelitos. You
Hmm.
make them with banana leaves.
Yeah,
I
she's told me about them. We've never ventured to try to.
Yeah, they're a little bit, I think, thicker, and the filling's a little bit thicker, and the masa's a little bit thinner.
Mm.
But yeah, those are awesome. But I've never had a nacatamales, so you have to show me someday. Uva, who was also in New Mexico. Um, Put avocados in the processor and oil. We talked about that. Um, I guess talking about Daya, change the formula and it's so good. Yeah, definitely. If you're already vegan and you gave up on Daya or you're trying, you had the old formula and you're like, oh my god, Daya's horrible. Please give them another shot because make sure it's a cutting board formula. And I have to admit there's a lot of good cheeses out there, but that's probably one of my favorite. It's also one of the more that's accessible. They're pretty much everywhere now.
Mhm.
Definitely look for that one. Um, Somebody says, I think the stomach lining was used in an attempt to make use of more of the animal. Oyster mushroom is a much better alternative. Yes, I'm sure the animals agree as well. Yeah, it's true.
I
Um,
I never liked mole, and think it's because the story was my mom, I guess, had a bowl of mole every single, or not mole, I'm sorry, a menudo, every
yeah.
single day while she was pregnant with me. And
Oh,
ever
that's why
since
you
the
don't
day
like.
I was born, I can't stand the smell of it. Cooked,
Yeah.
raw, anything. It just
It stinks, man. To be
she,
honest, the one that's not the one's animal based, it just stinks when it's cooking because I mean, you figure you're cooking this organ, of an animal. It's horrible, man. And I don't
yeah.
know. Yeah, again, it goes back to like eating pig's feet and
Mhm,
oxtail. We were talking about soul food.
mhm,
It's it comes from humble backgrounds because that's maybe all we had at the time,
mhm.
and so we don't have any actual meat from the muscle of the animal. We have these leftovers that maybe these people would throw out. We come and try to make something good. And again,
Absolutely.
what gives it the flavor is always the spices, the red chili, and all that stuff. Let's
And
see.
someone asked any update on rumors of a Beyond Pork being available. Have you heard anything about that?
I didn't hear about Beyond. I heard about Impossible Foods is working on something like that. I don't
Hmm.
know if it was a pork chop. I know they were trying to make bacon. Um, but pork, if you go to an Asian market, you could definitely find it's a seitan base, which is a wheat base. They have actually canned like pork meat, which is plant based, and it's made with seitan. I've used those before. So if you have an Asian market, go to the canned food section. You can usually find that, and so that might be like an alternative. But I know these companies are always perfecting it and trying to make it more meaty like. And again, like Beyond and Impossible, they're not here for the vegans. They're here for everybody. And the majority of the community are not vegan that are buying those products. So it's it's a big game changer for veganism, and they're making it more accessible. They're lowering the prices now that the demand's growing up. So eventually, I mean, I know Impossible wants to make it comparable or cheaper than actual regular ground beef. So that's something to look up.
It's hard to keep up with all the products and alternatives, which is actually a good thing, a
Yeah,
good
it,
problem to have. But
it, it's funny you say that because when you go vegan, I mean, depending how long ago you did it, we're going on 6 years, but even then, there was already alternatives, so it was still a good time, but not as much as there is now. Maybe within the last 2 years, and there's been a lot of convenience coming out now, also for vegans. You got microwave food, you got a lot of frozen stuff. a lot of more convenience. So I'm not saying that because you're vegan, you're just going to eat a lot of convenience food and stuff like that. But it's good to know that it's there for you in case you need it. But so many new products now. It's like, man, tell the kids just cook some chicken nuggets that we have in the freezer there for tonight.
Exactly. And also, road tripping, like 3 years ago, it was like, hopefully there's a Chipotle or
Taco Bell.
worst case, yeah, we could do Taco Bell, but otherwise, like we're gonna just eat French fries till we get to the next town.
Yeah.
And now it's like, if you could go to a Burger King or even a Carl's Jr., Del Taco, it's everywhere, White Castle, on the East Coast. There's so many options now.
Yeah, definitely. Somebody was asking, where can I find the Cesar Chavez quote? You could just Google Cesar Chavez vegan quotes, and usually you'll pull up quite a good amount of them. There's a few videos of him also talking about it. You can look that up. Um, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tammy, for sharing our food trucks Facebook page there. Somebody's asking, anyone know of vegan food trucks in San Diego? I don't know, Tony. Do you know any food trucks?
In San Diego, I don't know.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of good food. I don't know about food trucks, but again, you can always look up Happy Cow, and I'm sure if there's a vegan food truck in town there, it'll pop up. Just pop in your zip code.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the not chicken broth brand. I guess the bouillon we're talking about. It's also available at Sprouts. Somebody's mentioning there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one's pretty good.
Somebody said they could look up the heat on a Scoville scale too. I guess on peppers. Already answered that one.
Yeah, if you don't have me there to select your peppers for you.
Yeah. Let's see. Gracias, Catherine. Yeah, Cacique Soy Chorizo is definitely my favorite. If you have access to a Mexican market, you can buy that. I think it's definitely the most original. It's like $1 something a tube. Really good stuff. Thank you, Atticus, for that.
And then we had another question all the way at the bottom for you, Victor, about about your family history.
Okay, the one in Spanish?
Yeah, with
Yeah.
ranching.
Yeah, somebody said, hola, con tu historia familiar ganadera, ¿qué te hizo ser vegano? ¿Cuál fue la principal razón? I'll answer in English and I'll answer in Spanish. For me and my family, it was definitely ethics. I have to give all the credit to my partner Carla. We came across some animals at a zoo, and again, after the life of me growing up on a ranch, I moved away. I lived with my family, so I wasn't so much inside the ranching community or anything like that when I actually went vegan. But obviously, we still have families, so I have to say that I have to admit that I didn't go vegan when I was living on the ranch, but afterwards. So regarding our family, they're pretty much open to it. Really didn't struggle, so I feel I was fortunate because I know a lot of people might not be the case. But regarding the family, everybody pretty much embraced it. Um, some family members have tried to go vegan and have been kind of getting there. I know my mother-in-law's vegan. So we kind of just relate, being relatable, and having, again, the reason I shared that story is not so much because it has anything to do with veganism, but because you have a background, just like Tony has a background. All of us have backgrounds of where we come, where we live, and people can relate to that. If you're from a town and you're like, oh my God, I grew up there myself, that's something you can relate to. It's like, oh yeah, I used to eat chicharrones at this one place, and so you can relate to that. But para contestar su pregunta, no me crié sí me crié en el rancho, pero ya cuando me hice vegano, ya no vivía en el rancho. Pero los familiares que todavía viven en el rancho y todos saben que somos veganos y nos apoyan, igual comen nuestra comida, igual como está diciendo ahorita en inglés, que se tiene uno que relacionar. Y si tengo una familia que creció en el ganado o en la granja, que nos criamos ahí, mucha otra gente creció igual y eso se puede relacionar uno. Y hablando de eso, y luego ya entra el veganismo y hablamos de las comidas que crecimos comiendo, y así es como se puede uno relacionar y impactar más a la gente, que nomás en vez de decir, toma, es vegano, cómetelo. Y ya cuando sabe una la historia de algo, ya se puede relacionar un poco más. So I hope that helped. Let's see.
Thanks.
Yeah, I guess. What do
Sharing
you,
that.
that it?
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything.
Excellent, man.
Yeah, that was really great. Really enjoyed the interaction with everybody and all of the questions. And I made sure to copy the recipe for humitas,
Yeah,
um,
nice.
so I could share that with everybody. Um, yeah, so I guess we can go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks again. I had fun. Hopefully everyone enjoyed this, got some new ideas, some new recipes, new inspiration.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. I appreciate it. We had a great turnout. Hopefully, we'll do a few more of these and share some more stories. And I think that's what any anything is about. Really, is kind of sharing your stories and being relatable and having people realize like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm Mexican, I'm Cuban, I'm Puerto Rican, or whatever background you have, that I can actually go vegan and still just be like everybody else. Just everything I eat now is plant based. I still eat all my familiar dishes and do all that. So it doesn't have to be too exotic. You know, you don't have to go out of your way to try to come up with new recipes. And like Tony said, just come up with, look up the ones that you already cooked, or search regular recipes and veganize those. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for all the comments that are pouring in now at the end. And like I said, I'll send out a follow-up email. So if you have more questions or comments or ideas for specific topics you want us to do in the future, you can reply there. But otherwise, everyone have a great night, and hopefully hope you enjoy some great mole or enchiladas or something.
Make some atole if you're in an area that's chilly right now.
Exactly. We just had some this afternoon. So yeah, go make some of that.
All right,
Um,
guys.
all
Thank you,
right.
everybody. Appreciate
Good
it.
night, everyone.
Thanks, Tony. We'll see you.
All right. Good night.
Bye.